Welcome, everyone, to another installment of talking about crystallized childhood meth, aka Bluey. We may need to change the channel name at this rate, honestly, but we must press on.
As I've said before, Bluey is a publicly funded cartoon, so it's required to be educational and/or meaningful in some way. Bluey does this by teaching lessons to both the kids and the parents watching, and today we figured we'd talk about those lessons.
I don't want a volleyball line lesson. I just want an ice cream.
You know, when you guys said you needed help with something, I didn't think this was the something.
Gasp! Our children have been ponified! Where are the doggo children?
And double gasp! There's a talking horse in Chili and Bandit's backyard!
Ha ha, let's all laugh at Voice of Reason's expense because he doesn't have a doggo, see?
Don't you mean Voice of Raisin?
No, none of that. Also, please stop exploiting me for labor.
Fine. Wanna join the collab then?
If it means my lower back is not in pain for the rest of this bit, then sure. Let's talk about our favorite morals in Bluey.
Go on, kids, back to Uncle Jasper. Ask him for cake, see what happens to his face.
Similar to the last list we did, we're gonna go one at a time. Voice's 5th, then Ari's, then mine, then on to 4, etc. That way no one has a wall of text and you guys don't get bored.
Any rules, Voice?
Well, as far as how we're ranking these life lessons, it's all personal taste. However, I think we should rank them based on how applicable they are for all viewers. A lesson like make your own fun when you're bored would more than likely rank lower than if you want to do something right, do it properly.
With that out of the way, let us begin.
This episode of Bluey is called Yoga Ball.
So, between all three of us, isn't it weird that the extrovert is talking about this episode's morals?
Yeah, he's got us there.
It is weird, but it also fits. I don't know.
Here's something most kids should learn about early on. Personal limitations. When it came to those limitations for me, I remember as a kid what was allowed and what wasn't. From what I could eat or drink, to what media I could watch and listen to. Even though I totally snuck in Power Rangers and Rocko's Modern Life. At the same time, I was learning my own personal limitations. What did I deem fun until I wasn't having any? In Bingo's case, it was trying to enjoy the same level of playstyle Bandit and Bluey enjoyed with the Yoga Ball. Bingo's problem was not having the voice to speak up when Bandit was playing too rough, given her size and age. However, she doesn't want to be left out of the fun because the game pushed her limits. Bandit, in turn, learns what his youngest daughter's playstyle is so she could remain in the activity. I like this lesson of knowing and setting your boundary lines and finding your voice to speak up, because it could be applied to anything. Food, amusement, movie and music tastes, relationship goals, etc. It also shows it's completely fine to say no to things and not be treated negatively for it. There's no outside pressure from your peers or society to tell you what you can enjoy, as long as it's in good taste and it's legal. Once you know what your limits are, don't be afraid to find your big dog voice.
This episode of Bluey is called Facey Talk.
I really like Facey Talk. Out of the 150 episodes of the show, it winds up on both lists. Personally, I find that it pulls you in with the comedy and the overt moral. Don't hog, share, be kind to one another, before it really hits you with the grown-up moral. Sharing the burdens of parenthood, the burdens of life even, is just as important as sharing your toys or a snack when you are little. And solid, calm communication can win the day. Stripe and Trixie's parenting styles are really different. Stripe is more laid back and chases after the kids, while Trixie is more strict and bosses the kids. They've raised relatively good daughters, sans the occasional tantrum, but hey, they're 3 and 2. And it is in the background of this episode that you see it's done with open and calm communication. Just because they differ in their parenting styles doesn't make one right or wrong. But the differences need to come with compromise, and that's what they achieve here. Sharing the joys and burdens in a relationship is key. Compromise can make something like a parenting style or a list about Bluey stronger than the sum of their parts. And communication can solve a number of problems, because we know what happens when you hog.
Now, personally, I don't have a problem delegating tasks. Sure, I'll get more involved in a work if I think it'll go faster or if something is important. But if something isn't very important or there's not really a deadline, I have a much easier time letting someone else take care of it.
This episode of Bluey is called Omelette.
You can place most things that need to be done on a 2D axis of importance and urgency. Unfortunately, sometimes we conflate urgency with importance. Sometimes something is urgent but unimportant, or vice versa. Sure, a birthday breakfast for a hangry bandit seems quite urgent and important, but is it? really? Of course Bandit appreciates it, but is it really so important that he gets that breakfast in bed? Or is it more important that Bingo is able to be included in the gift? He clearly gets hangry, but is he really going to hold it against you forever if he doesn't urgently get his food? And if it's not both urgent and important, there's really no need to maintain control. Yes, if you're gonna do something, you should do it right, but how are the rest of us going to learn how to do it right if we never get the chance to contribute? Just let them try. If they fail, they learned their limits or learned what not to do next time. Sure, they may not know everything about what they're doing, but darn it, don't snuff out their desire of genuinely wanting to give it a shot. They won't get anywhere if it's all done for them. You'll just put work on yourself and they will learn how to do things themselves.
Did you like it?
Bingo, I'm going to be completely honest. That was the best omelette I've ever had in my life.
Hooray!
One theme that Bluey likes to explore is perseverance, the persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. From Rusty trying to better himself in cricket, to the healer girls attempting to move a ragdoll bandit for ice cream, this moral has stuck with the show since the very beginning, and we can trace it back to Bluey attempting to ride a bike without training wheels.
This episode of Bluey is called Bike.
Life's achievements almost never come easy. There will be an obstacle in your way to get to your personal goal. Sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's physical limitations, sometimes it's your own mental blocks, and sometimes it's a combination of the three. Then again, you might find a way to circumvent that obstacle. You can use what's around you to reach new heights. You can find the path of least resistance to make things easier. Or you can improvise to create an entirely new victory. Although I think moving the goalpost closer might not count, even though it's a technical victory. Regardless of how you plan to reach that goal, don't give up. The win will be ever so satisfying when you keep at it.
I'd like to get down now. This episode of Bluey is called The Weekend.
Some folks are going to look at this episode and wonder, there's a lesson in here? Where? And indeed, it does look like a cute little slice of life episode, which it is. It absolutely is. But slice of life can mean more than just the cute pilot. Yes, this was the pilot episode. Did you know that? And I could see why the show took off if this was the introduction to it. Why?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
That's it. That right there. That's the moral. Parents, apologize to your children. Explain yourself. Show them you did not mean to hurt them. This moral for parents is something I don't think people think about sometimes. Kids aren't just kids. They are mini humans with complex emotions just like we have. They just can't process or identify them yet. So apologizing and modeling saying sorry and being sincere about it is super important for kids. Not only does it teach them empathy and how to say sorry themselves, it shows them that you love and care about them more than your pride, though they wouldn't be able to identify those complexities until later. Even when I was a kid, I apologized for everything, even if it was not my fault. Meanwhile, I can recall only 3 instances where my dad ever apologized to me, and I cannot think of very many off the top of my head where my mom did. And what does that give me? Fear of authority and an apologizing complex where everything is my fault. Apologize to children. They aren't little demons, unless Karen and Chad raised them that way. Kids are humans, just smaller ones with more freedom to be loud and carefree.
I remember showing this episode to Silverquill because I thought it was a really good one, and I think he very succinctly articulated the reason why it works so well. It honors both sides of the argument.
This episode of Bluey is called Pass the Parcel.
On one hand, learning that you don't always win is important. No one really enjoys losing, but at some point in your life, you're inevitably gonna taste that vinegar, and you gotta learn to swallow it. Of course, winning is fun, but there's more to a game than winning. Anticipation, risk, challenge, surprise, those can be fun too, even in spite of losing. On the other hand, if someone's having fun, why should we rain on their parade? Because they're not having fun the right way? Oh no, the D&D group focuses more on relationship drama RP than the classic slaying and looting dungeon delving. To them, you're the one playing wrong. Quit being a purist, let people have their fun, and just find people who play the way you like it. Okay, yeah, I'm probably being too harsh. To put it another way, Mario Party. Someone's gonna win first place, and luck was probably a major factor for them winning. but think about all the memorable shenanigans that happened on the way. You're really gonna miss out on all that just because you didn't get first? Just play the way you think is fun. If you can't and you lose, learn how to lose like a champion.
This episode of Bluey is called Space.
I was struggling to figure out why the episode Space stuck with me. While I relate to Mackenzie, I didn't have any lasting childhood trauma like he did, and I never had a teacher like Calypso to help me through personal things. I couldn't wrap my brain around why this episode was imprinted on my mind, and then it clicked for me. The episode was about asking for help. Mackenzie was trying to process his playground experience on his own without others stepping in. His thought process is that he must solo this endeavor in order to prove he can get over it by himself. That is something I can relate to. I'm usually okay with asking for assistance if there's too much on my plate and I need an extra set of hands to get a task done. Whether it's cooking a big meal or assembling a piece of furniture, inquiring for an assistant is no big deal. Personal problems are trickier. Asking for help in those situations might make you feel weak. The mentality is you need to prove to yourself you are stronger than the event that's currently weighing you down. These problems are yours and yours alone, but they don't have to be. It's okay to confide in others, whether it's a friend, a family member, or someone in your community you trust. You don't have to go it alone, because there are those willing to offer aid. Asking for help is not overrated. Full stop.
This episode of Bluey is called Takeaway.
We talked a little bit about Takeaway before, but I think both that episode and TV Shop have the same moral for adults, though Takeaway is more overt. You're only young once, let the children be young. Let them enjoy hose showers and pretending to be in a restaurant and running through a store, not destroying things, but quietly playing a game. Let them work together and play together. Let them be kids. But another moral I think is in both and is a little more overt in TV Shop. Let yourself be young again, no matter how old you are. It's not just about feeling young again. You can get all the vitamins, protein shakes, makeup, shoes, anything to make you feel like you're recapturing your youth. However, without the right attitude, the right joy of being young, you'll only focus on feeling silly rather than feeling free. Dance with the kids, play in the water, put your phone away and live like only kids know how to live. Be free. As much as I hate to meme trash for a meme that's so meh, YOLO isn't exactly incorrect.
No, go to the corner.
But it's true. Be free, my friends.
No YOLO in this house!
I got her. You go ahead with your entry.
Freedom!
This episode of Bluey is called Dance Mode.
I think dance mode is important because it delivers several very important morals. First, don't back out of your promises. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Once you make a commitment, you gotta honor a commitment. And yes, there's nothing really wrong with renegotiating an agreement if you need to, but you keep doing that and your promises aren't gonna mean much to people and they won't trust you. Secondly, don't let people take advantage of you and speak up when you are upset. I know it sucks. I struggle with this every day. The path of least resistance is so tempting. But take it from a guy who constantly fails at this. Bottling up your frustration spares you a little pain now and makes it hurt twice as much later. And thirdly, try to be conscious of when you might be taking advantage of someone. You might not be maliciously doing it, but yeah, sometimes you can accidentally take advantage of someone's goodwill. Like Bingo's family did here. They all asked for permission, but might have been a little pushy to get the thing they wanted. A good rule of thumb that works for me is if I'm ever really impressed by something someone's done for me at my request, or if they ever joke that something I asked them to do was hard, or if there's some reluctance in an agreement, that might be a signal that I'm pushing my luck. Now, you shouldn't overthink it, but try to pay attention to the little things. The worst thing that can come from asking someone if you may be taking advantage of them is they say, no, not really.
I can describe this episode's moral with only one word. Catharsis!
This episode of Bluey is called Library.
So, my for-real-life job is in media, specifically the news media. How I haven't had an aneurysm from sheer stupidity is nothing short of a miracle. However, the stories that usually get my blood boiling are when people get away with things because they claim to have certain privileges, even if there's rules set in place that would say otherwise. But I'd rather not talk about real-world stuff, so let's make it small scale. Say, parents and kids ignoring rules because they think they're special. With how Library was turning out, I feared we were going to have another charade situation, with Muffin getting what she wants despite her misbehavior. It's only when Stripe realized she misinterpreted what he said in the car that everything changed.
You know how I said you're the most special kid in the world?
Yes?
Well, you're not.
Oh.
I mean, you are to me and your mum. We love you more than anything. But you're probably not special to everyone else.
And she was receptive to the lesson, which was a huge sigh of relief. And that lesson of the day? Just because someone says you are special, it doesn't mean the rules don't apply to you. Some rules are put in place for a reason. Without certain rules, everything would be chaos. By the way, parents, this also applies to you. The rulemaking starts with you. Kids are impressionable, so if they see you doing something that's not kosher, they will imitate it. Be the example and stick to your code. With some bending if certain situations prevent you from adhering to the rules.
Alright, y'all knew this episode was going to be on here, but I bet you thought it would be number 1.
This episode of Bluey is called Baby Race.
And while yes, it's still my favorite, the moral is not why it's my favorite. It's my favorite because of how personal it is to me. But the message is also important, especially to a younger Ari. Focus on the here and now, focus on your own life, and don't compare. I was in a really dark place for a long time and always terrified of the future. I let myself be so afraid of everyone and everything that I missed out on enjoying the friends and family I had. I was very self-destructive because I was afraid I had no time left when I had my whole life ahead of me. Focus on your own journey, not anyone else's, is an amazing moral for both adults and kids. With kids, they develop at such different rates and have starkly different talents that it almost makes no sense to compare. But they do, and that's how bullying happens, because some features and talents are deemed acceptable and some aren't. That should not be the case. Everyone is their own unique clump of cells, and everyone is different. Embrace those differences. Focus on being the best you. Great lesson for the kiddos. And that all carries over into adulthood. We still have hobbies and families and friends, and we are all still different. But because of social media and such, we compare ourselves to other people more and more. We struggle with the ability to be content. Oh, her house is much more luxurious. Oh, his abs are sick. When in reality, you're doing fine. You're still here, after all. That is the most important thing. Be here. Be present with those who love you for you. Be content with being you while striving to be the best you that you can be. Run your own race. You're doing great.
Boring things are still important.
As someone with attention deficit disorder, this is hard.
This episode of Bluey is called The Pool.
It takes so long for me to work up the energy to do the boring thing that needs to be done. In my head, I know the boring thing now means the fun time later. The fun thing now means a bad time later. You gotta make those $200 car inspections and tune-ups, or you're gonna be looking at a $4,000 replacement bill later. Make sure you spend a few hours in a clinic a month making sure you're getting looked at before you have to spend a week in the hospital. For a less morbid analogy, make sure you grab everything you need for the pool, otherwise,
gonna have a bad time.
Bandit, Bluey, and Bingo learned this lesson the hard way. Up until Chili rescued them like the champ she is. And hopefully, I've learned my lesson and can do the task I need to. Ooh, a goat.
Before we talk about our favorite morals of the show, here are some honorable mentions.
Seesaw.
Teamwork makes the dream work, no matter how small a participant. Literally, in this case.
Granddad.
Take care of yourself, not just for your own good, but for the good of those who love you.
Veranda Santa.
Do the right things because they're the right thing to do, not because you get stuff out of it.
Well, folks, it's time to get deep.
This episode of Bluey is called The Sign.
If you haven't seen my take on The Sign in my top 10 favorite Bluey episodes video, here's the short version. It's my favorite episode of the show. The reason I love it beyond the callbacks, humor, and emotional gut punch of an ending, the message is a life lesson everyone needs to hear. The framing device of the episode, beyond the wedding and the big move, is the fable of the Chinese farmer. Calypso reads it to Bluey's class to help the Blue Healer learn how to take this uncertain news of moving to a new city. The farmer in the story has fortune and misfortune in his life over the span of a couple of days. Everyone around him reacts accordingly to the good and bad luck from the outside looking in. The farmer, however, has a different reaction to each new moment.
We'll see, replied the farmer.
Now at first, it sounds like the agriculture enthusiast has no reaction whatsoever. He views each bit of news with indifference. But that's not what's really going on. He takes each experience day to day. A lost horse leads to its return and a herd of horses arriving with it. His son breaking his leg on one of the equines means he isn't shipped off to war in a few days. Applying that to the episode, Rad not telling Frisky he wants her to move out west with him becomes a Rube Goldberg machine of good and bad luck, with the healers staying in the neighborhood. I'll admit, these past 3 years felt like the worst years of my life because of all of the misfortune I was having, just waiting on a twist of fate. After watching The Sign several times to write this, as well as my favorite episodes list, I now know to take every day with a grain of salt. You'll never know what's to come, so just keep rolling with the punches. Also, yes, that was a reference to Sum 41's opening track on Heaven X Hell. I'm going to miss them so much!
I talked about this one before too, but oh my gosh, this episode's moral hits deeper when you hear the backstory.
This episode of Bluey is called The Show.
Firstly, like Voice said, Bluey focuses a lot on perseverance. Keep going, don't give up, practice. Just a lot of the morals are about this topic, which is great. That's something I struggle with still, especially at work. So sleepy. But the show goes a bit deeper. The creator and main writer of Bluey, Joe Brum, knows someone who unfortunately suffered a pregnancy loss. And like any mom who was truly looking forward to their baby, she was heartbroken. But she had other kids to take care of, other responsibilities, and she could not wallow. The line Chili says is a direct quote from her, how she powered through one of the worst losses of her life.
I have a little cry.
Check,
Then I pick myself up,
check,
dust myself off,
check.
and keep going. The show must go on.
But her model of perseverance through misfortune and heartbreak is pretty universal. Sure, have a little cry. You're human. Have that emotion. Everybody hurts.
Everybody hurts.
But don't stay in that cry. Don't stay in the dark place. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. This is harder for some than others. I know I struggle with this a lot. Luckily, this is not about lessons from me, but from Bluey. Whatever your picking up, dusting off, keep going looks like, just keep going. Don't wallow. You have too much to do, too much to see, to experience. Too much greatness to stay snuggled up in a blanket sushi roll with your cat watching Meg Ryan movies and eating cinnamon rolls with tahini on them.
That was oddly specific.
Don't judge me. It was a really good manga.
Bottom line.
Right. Bottom line, perseverance. Through everything. You can do this.
You know that voice in your head that says, "But I'm right, why can't they see that?" That little voice is to be ignored and shoved so far down in the dirt that it never sees the light of day. So what if you're right? If you are right, ask yourself this. Is what you're right about really that important? Is winning this argument really gonna make both our lives significantly better? Is it really worth losing a relationship over whether or not grannies can floss?
This episode of Bluey is called Grannies.
Bluey learned this important lesson at such a young age that I didn't learn until my late 20s, and anyone who is married can understand this. Sometimes preserving the relationship is more important than being right.
Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yes, having the right facts is important, but that's not a free pass to trample over other people's feelings. Heck, more often than not, that just makes them dig their heels in deeper. And if you ever get that voice in your head that says,
"Well, if they're gonna act like that when they're wrong, then I don't want the relationship at all,"
that voice needs to be incinerated and its ashes scattered to the four winds.
Should I be worried you keep saying voice and describing very violent actions? Starting to question my safety again.
Sorry, I couldn't think of a better metaphor.
We still love you.
Okay, cut it out.
Point is, people don't often change their minds about things. See Unicourse for that. But on the off chance that they might change their minds, acting all smug and self-righteous about your position never helps. If it's actually important, sure, make your case about why you're right, but don't be a jerk about it. Another big part of this episode is finding the third option, compromise. It doesn't have to be an either or whether someone's right. Who knows? There may be a way for you to both be right. It just might take a little bit of work. At the end of it all, do you want to keep your relationships, or do you want to satisfy your ego?
Bluey is a special show, but I'm sure we've beaten that into your heads by now.
And we're going to keep talking about it while the passion is still alive and well. We owe the show that much.
We hope that by explaining our favorite life lessons from the show, you might give it a chance and find a lesson that speaks to you.
And with that, thank you, Voice, for helping out with our morals list.
It's my pleasure. Now put an actual Ratchet & Clank entry in one of your video game top 10 lists.
Never! Jack Gang for life!